All right. So the question is, spring training started today, first baseball game of the year. My question is simple question: who is one player in the MLB that you expect to break out this year?
Ooh, interesting question. Breakout, as in like they were not good last year, or they're just going to be like take a big step this year.
I think it could be. I think it could be either or because there's guys that didn't have good years last year that usually are good that I think are going to bounce back. But my two nominees are guys that have not proved their their dominance or anything yet, and I think are going to or have a chance to this year at
Okay.
least.
I,
If you
I mean,
got
do
it, go
y'all
ahead,
want me to
Boston.
go first? It's my question. I feel awkward to
all
go
right, I can
first,
go
but
first.
No,
So
I was about to
I'll
say.
be a all right. I'm gonna be a homebody on one of this one just because I love the Phils. I'll cover everything about the Phils. Uh, I'm going to go with Johan Rojas. He was our rookie last year who did not get a single hit in the playoffs, which was embarrassing. He's an elite defender, elite center fielder, but he could not swing. I mean, he was batting zero. He was batting 0-0-0 in the playoffs, and we almost went to the World Series. And we would have if they would have just pinch hit for him. But I digress. He has been working so hard in the offseason. He is looking huge compared to what he was. So his speed and his defense is incredible. And is apparently he's been working on batting all offseason. No vacation, straight batting cage. Every when he went visited home, he was still batting. So this guy, he has got a chip on his shoulder, knowing that he went in the playoffs. And I mean, I'm not going to blame him because it's a whole team effort, and there's some pitching changes that I wouldn't have made. But he knows. I mean, imagine being in the playoffs and not getting a hit, and you don't make the World Series. I couldn't imagine that weight on my shoulder. So he knows, and I think this year he breaks out.
Especially in Philly.
Oh, especially in Philly, and don't worry, they're
Especially in
already trying
Philly.
to turn on him. I was watching a live show from Philadelphia, and there were some comments that were like, "Man, bro, that's you just so mean. Like, why say that? Like, people are just tearing him apart." And I get it. He was a rookie. Now you got to get a hit, but it's not his fault they kept hitting him. If they're going to keep putting me at the plate, I'm going to keep batting. He can't bunt either. That's a huge problem of being extremely fast and not being able to bunt. That's not how this works. So I think he's going to take a huge step up, Johan Rojas. And I've got a player I love, and that's Cal Raleigh. And Cal Raleigh he's just, his personality is someone you just want to be around. He's 27. And think, I think in the Mariners themselves are going to be a little bit better team this year. And I think Cal Raleigh can step up. He's been batting low 200s in his first 2-3 seasons. But I think this is the year where he takes his time in the off season. He's at the age where, baseball players can play a long time, but 27 is still kind of hey, people might not want to pay you. You need to start showing up so people want to give you a paycheck, because in baseball they can give you a lot of money. Okay, so you're at the age where somebody might give you a long mediocre contract, and you're like, hey, I guess that's as good as I am. So Cal Raleigh, as a catcher, I think this league has got some good catchers, and I think he can be one of them. Defensively, he's really sound. He just needs to get that bat active. He needs to be hitting more home runs in his position. He's going to be getting bigger hits. And I think he will step it up this year. So I'm going to go Johan Rojas, center fielder for the Phillies, and Cal Raleigh. I think both of them are going to get more time this year, both more at bats. And I think this is the year they both do a lot better than they did last year.
Yeah. Cal Raleigh he's a dog. I don't know a ton about Rojas, but I'm gonna follow the same step as you. I'm gonna go one homer pick and then one outside. For the homer pick. I'm gonna go with Francisco Alvarez. I know he. I don't know if outside of the Mets organization, if people realized how good he was, or if it was kind of hush hush. But I mean, he really got better as the season went on. It was like literally every game, he got better, and he was clutch. He hit a couple of walk offs. He had some big hits that tied the game in like the ninth or tenth inning. And the big problem for him was he wasn't a great catcher, right? Like we always knew he had the power. We always knew he could hit the home runs, but he really improved behind the plate defensively too. So I think this is like I personally, and this is I know this is a homer thing, but I think he's an all star this year. I think Francisco Alvarez is going to be an all star this year. That's like a bold prediction, I know. But he was good. I don't know.
Are the Mets
Yeah,
allowed to have all
but
stars?
probably not.
I think they should just trade him
Other
so
than
he can play against another Met in the playoffs for other teams.
yeah, that's what the Mets love to do. If Pete Alonso's a Met after this year, I'll be very surprised. I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I'll be very surprised if Pete Alonso's still a Met after this year. Um, But my outside pick is Hunter Green. I know people think he's good, like too. Like it's not like he's under like wraps. It's not some no name guy, but he struggled a ton with injuries, and he also struggles a lot like containing his fastball and not getting just hit around the ballpark. Like it seems like he's either striking out 15 people or giving up 15 runs. And I think this year, if he can stay healthy, he can kind of hone it in some, stop giving up 5-6 runs in a game whenever he like gets off track. I think it's time for him to mature. It's time for him to be okay. Hey, I gave up a home run. Let me get back to what I know and stop the bleeding. So I think this is the year for Hunter Green to really take a step forward.
Man, fastball pitchers, man. There's no in between. It's either you're getting raked off of or you're blowing gas by people. So that's a tough one. I love it
I
though.
think
I
he's got to
love it.
develop a couple more
I
things.
want him to be
If he
so
wants,
good. He's so fun to watch already. He really is.
I mean, he's got to take a step up at some point. Otherwise, you can't really keep him around. I mean, it's so hard to put him out there as a starting pitcher when he's liable to give up just as many strikeouts as he does runs. At some point he's got to calm it down or become a closer. I mean, if he becomes a closer, I mean, you could put him in that role too. But I think as a starting pitcher, he's got to develop. He's got to start, like I said, stopping the bleeding whenever he gives up a run. It seems like it just spirals out of control.
Cam, can I ask you one question before you take your two? I'm going to ask you now, just so we don't
Yeah.
go on a tangent after when we feel like there's nothing else to talk about. Do you think Tim Anderson shows up in Miami? Do you think he goes back to his ways?
I don't. I don't necessarily. When you say his ways, you talking about like all star?
Yeah, when we were all
Or
convinced Tim Anderson was the next great for a season where it built up to where like who is this guy, and then it went to oh he's that guy, and then it went to now he's a meme after what happened to him.
yeah, I think I'm a big Tim Anderson guy personally. Like I
I
always have
used to be.
been.
I loved Tim Anderson. I would pick him up on. I do drafts on MLB, and I make sure I got Tim Anderson every single time. Loved it. I loved watching him. I loved his emotion when they used to try to down and be like, "Oh, you don't." He was showing emotion. He needs to. That's baseball needs that. But then he would after a little while he started saying some Kyrie things, and then he started being a little crazy and not showing up in games. But just real quick, I wanted to know what you think he's going to do down in Miami.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be an all star again. But I mean, to be fair, the shortstop position in the National League is probably the weakest position in the National League, all star wise. I mean, Orlando Arcia was starting there last year somehow, but um, I don't think he will be an all star. I think he'll definitely bounce back because I mean it's hard to not bounce back from what he did last year. But I think getting out of Chicago is good for him. I think that whole team situation as a whole was messed up, like really messed up. But I think he was kind of in the middle of it. And obviously, I'm not in the locker room. I don't know, like what was actually happening. But from the stories that I saw, my assumption is he's always wanted to be that leader, and I think he tried to be that leader last year. And then when they started losing, I think it kind of just got turned on him. He's that type of guy that I would expect that if somebody's BSing around in the locker room, he's going to say something to him. And me personally, as like a person that wants to be like a coach and stuff like that, like I would want that out of a player. However, some people don't respond to that well, and so I'm glad that he got out of there. Is my thing. I actually wanted the Red Sox to go get him, personally, but now we went and got Vaughn Grissom in a trade. Fine by me. But yeah, I don't think he'll be an all star, but I think he'll be better.
Yeah,
Than what
he went
did
from a
last year.
small market with cool jerseys and a good stadium to a small market with good jerseys and a terrible stadium.
Yep. Um,
Dude,
So
the White Sox is where players go to die. Yeah, go
But
ahead,
that's
Cam.
where Chance the Rapper gets its
my
hats.
my two players. Before I say my two players, I want to talk about John's two players. I like Rojas' pick. I'm just scared that he's just another guy that y'all, a guy that y'all went out and got that was an elite defender and couldn't really hit in Christian Pache. But he is younger. I think
And
there is
nobody
something
talks
there
about
for him.
Pache. Nobody talk. We've been looking for outfielders still. And we're thinking our owner came out and said, "Hey, we're not going to do anything this offseason. We're going to wait until the trade deadline. If we need somebody, we'll get somebody." But he said, "How about we just keep our money, see what this team has?" And we got Witt, um, Merrifield. Is that a I want to make sure I didn't mix back. He's older, but he can do everything. He can do absolutely everything. So that's nice to have. Nobody respected Pache, and I like him. I like the kid. But anyway, sorry.
I
Yeah,
didn't know you guys picked up Whit Merrifield. That's a solid pickup.
Oh, great pickup.
That's a
That's
solid
a
pickup,
winning
man.
team pickup.
He can play. Yes.
and then Cal Riley, good pick. And then Landon, your picks. When you said um, you're gonna go Homer, I thought you were gonna go with like Ronnie Mauricio or who hasn't really shown, hasn't really done a lot in the MLB because he hasn't had the chance. But like Brett Beatty, somebody like that. But I don't think. I think Francisco Alvarez is a little underrated, but the numbers aren't like eye popping, and I think that's why he's a little underrated. The strikeout, the walk rate was not great. He was only hitting 209, but there was power and RBIs there. I think if the lineup produces more around him, I think he's going to have better numbers though.
Yeah,
And then
and the
Hunter
thing was
Green,
he was hitting like 105 for a minute, and
yeah,
it was like the last like 25 games of the season, and especially because our season was already over, the fact that he got better and continued to like try and started to walk more and had a couple of clutch home runs, like that was what really impressed me about him. Was like, hey, it didn't matter. I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna continue to work on my game, and that was what I really liked about it.
yeah.
But yeah.
And then Hunter Green, it's you hit him performance wise on the nose. It's either 15 strikeouts and like no runs, or 18 runs. Throwback to last year when he no hit the Pirates and lost the game somehow. Uh, but yeah, I think the big thing with Hunter Green is his health, though. Is he gonna be able to pitch a full year or not? But to my two players, I'll start with my dark horse player that I I don't know why, I don't know how, but I still think that there might be something there, and I think he's going to get the chance to prove it this year. Is if he is a guy and or not, or is he just going to be a quad A player, which is, if you don't know what that is, a guy that just rotates from AAA to the major leagues all the time. And that's out in Anaheim with Joe Adell. Um, Joe Adell was the. Hold on, let me look it up real quick. I gotta have the number pick real quick. He was the
Joe
10th
Adell.
overall pick in the 2017 draft. I knew he was a top 10 pick, but I didn't know the exact number. Um, and he was supposed to be the next big guy. Be in the outfield with Mike Trout and all this. And he just has not shown it. I think in like 3 seasons, in 3 seasons he's had about what would be a full season of a starter's numbers. And I think he's hitting like low 200s. The pop is there. Power's not terrible, but he's striking out a lot. But I think this is the year. Like, this is the make or break it year. Like, Joe Adell, are you going to be a starter in the MLB, or are you going to bounce around to 18 different teams playing in AAA for 5 more years? I'm in my second pick. This is a guy that I'm very high on this year. And it's Landon. You might know this name. He was the main piece in the Edwin Diaz and Robinson Cano trade to the Mariners. He was also a first-round pick, I think 6th overall in 2018. It's Jared
Oh
Kelly,
yeah. Yeah.
who
Yeah. Yeah.
was traded this offseason to Atlanta in exchange for some low-end pitchers. But being in Atlanta, I think he's going to, if not, have the chance to be at least their everyday left fielder. Um, and he's going to be in that awesome lineup that they have in Atlanta. He's going to be surrounded by Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Michael. Like, I mean, it goes without saying how good Atlanta's lineup is, obviously. But him being around those guys, I think this is the year that he really has the chance to like pop off, find his game again. Last year in Seattle, he had I think his best statistical year that he's had in the 2 or 3 years that he's been in the league now. Um, so I think that this is a really big year for him, and I'm very high on Jared Kelenic this year. Finally getting to that potential that he had, and if he does get to that like high potential that he had, that's just another great piece in that lineup for Atlanta, which is
Another
I think
young piece in that scary line.
I
another
know
young
that
And
they
and with those
that they're somehow going to sign like an 8-year, $12 million deal, like somehow, like it's
yeah.
and
ridiculous.
they're going to get the bats going too because they're Atlanta, and you already know when bats get going, everybody gets going. So this is great. I think that's an incredible pick for a breakout player. I mean, he's just in the perfect setting,
Yeah,
and with a lineup that no matter where he is, I mean, there can be people on base or he's getting on base. So either way, he's either scoring the run or he's getting an RBI. Uh, I, Joe Adell is a that's a shot in the dark for me, man. It's like it's so funny because that's the complete opposite. Being with the Angels is a team that is shown that they're going nowhere every year, year in and year out, and choosing somebody to be a breakout player for the Angels is bold. And Joe Adell is why didn't he play much this season? Was he hurt? Why was he not up there with
he's
him?
just bad.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was about to say he was in AAA for a lot of the
because
season.
I did see that they had a this was the I saw they said Joe Adell year to break out question mark, and I'm in my opinion I'm like no man. I mean trade him off. Like I just hate. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but maybe he's just bad with I almost call him the Ducks hockey brain with the Angels. Because he's just he performed. They gave him a shot in 2022, and he played a lot of games. He played a lot of games, and
yeah.
I mean he had maybe 300 plate appearances, and he hit less than 10 home runs. Um, he's bad. He was batting almost 200, probably over 200. But it just
Yeah, so 2022 he had 285 plate appearances. He had 8 home runs, 27 RBIs. He was hitting 224, and this is probably the worst part of that stat line.
it gets worse.
107 107 strikeouts to 11 walks in
Yeah,
2022.
that's.
107
I mean, now I
285 plate
that
appearances.
the fact that the strikeouts is impressive because you were only going to get so many at bats playing for the Angels. It's not like bats are going and guys are getting on base. So and that's why also with RBIs, I don't want to, I can count RBIs all I want with them, but how often is somebody going to go on base for you to get to knock them in? Home runs is where I'd count, and right there, I would take in consideration that he's striking out a lot. But again, that's why these are breakout players. There's a reason we chosen to break out. I think out of all players, I think that's the least likely for me. But I think you never know. You never know. Now that's why it's fun.
I trust
I
Cam.
no no no.
I trust
I
Cam if
trust
Cam
Cam.
says it.
I believe me. I trust Cam. This is gonna be fun. I want to follow these players. We need to do a little fantasy baseball. We might not even make a league, but maybe do a little. We pick two guys, and just kind of compare at the end each week. I don't know. We could because doing an actual league wouldn't make sense. Maybe we do something with pick a roster of guys and we do least strikeouts, whoever strikes out the least, or most home runs, or we can have a rotation of pitchers, something fun, something interesting that we can keep up with, and there can be wins and losses.
Dude, a fantasy league with 3 guys would be absurd.
That's why we would need to do like
You would-
something where we do a draft
yeah,
between us
yeah,
three, and we get 5 players, and whoever hits the most home runs in total at the end of the season or halfway through. We just count the home runs ourselves. We don't
yeah.
need a whole league for it.
Yeah, we could do that. But the one thing I do want to say is we don't really engage our audience a lot. What I do want to say is, especially for this one, if you're a baseball guy, comment guys that you think would break out too, because it's really fun to follow guys that are like young or haven't had that big of an opportunity to see them like get a chance and know that you guys had them breaking out and nobody else did. So let us know who you think is going to break out because we want to analyze it too. We want to be on the bandwagon with
Yeah,
you.
if your friends don't
So
believe you, you can
that's
come
what I
back
want to
and you
say.
can show them that comment, and we'll back you up.
Yep, we got you. But let's we'll do a short little one because this is not the best sport to cover because it's kind of
Before we move off of
none of us really
baseball,
enjoy it as
can I
much.
give one shout out?
Okay, yeah, do it.
I should have had the players pulled up. So I'm sorry, I won't have that right now. But I want to give a huge shout out to the University of North Carolina Greensboro for going against the number one team in college baseball in Wake Forest, knocking off the number one team in college baseball 4-3. Okay, that is a huge victory that nobody's talking about. Wake Forest, number one team in college baseball, goes in to UNCG's baseball stadium, the only one on campus. No students wanted to show up. It was all Wake Forest fans. The staff didn't even know there was a baseball game going on, even though they play in the number one team in the league. I digress because, no, I don't actually, because this stupid. Anyway, you're playing the number one team in college. You're playing the number one team in college in any sport. Tell your students, tell your staff, pack the house. It's free to go to baseball games. And nobody was there except for Wake Forest fans. Shame on you, UNCG, but shout out to these players. UNCG's had over 30 players drafted to the MLB. They're a great program. They beat Wake Forest. They're 5-0 right now. UNCG, look out for them in the tournament.